The standard is the standard in this building, and it is going up. Welcome to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It is a Tuesday. He's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. These are snap judgments after hearing from Ryan Day as the Buckeyes get ready for UCLA on Saturday. And the grade percentage requirement to be a champion has gone from 80 to 83%. You think, well, that seems silly and arbitrary. It is a reminder that the stakes are going up for this team.
Yeah, and it should be. If you want to be a national champion, if you want to be a team that is remembered as one of the all-time greats, then you need to elevate your standards, and Ohio State is doing that. I don't know how long it's been 80% as the champion, but hey.
Pretty much forever as far as I've been aware.
Inflation's everywhere, and you just have to be prepared for it. And again, if you're at Ohio State, a B minus is not really good enough. Yeah. So, now you get a B, and it's okay. But it certainly...
Well, it's not okay.
It's not
That's
okay.
what it takes.
It's what it takes. You have to be... Ryan Day was talking about it in a question asked by Adam King about Julian Sayin. He said every single play is important. So when the Buckeyes get into the building on Sundays and they start grading these game performances, every play is being counted. Every play is being watched. Today was pretty interesting just listening to him talk about the roster building and where they're going and how they're evaluating every player like 3 years from now, not even just if that guy can play next week. So it's just another little look into what it takes to run a place like Ohio State as a football program. And Ryan Day talking today about how it's his job to make sure people aren't being selfish. And it's funny because we think that his job is to just coach a football team, but it's really much bigger than that.
I mean, he's the CEO of the Ohio State football program, and there are a lot of vibes that go into that.
But imagine if you were running a Fortune 500 company and you were the CEO, and somebody said, "Hey, is Adam in accounting being selfish?" The average CEO is going to be like, "I don't know who Adam in accounting is."
I don't know. If he's a good CEO of a Fortune 500 company, I bet he is paying attention to those things.
Maybe.
And that's what I think Ryan Day has become over these last couple of years, is he's moved away from the hyper focus on calling third down and being the play caller for the offense. I think he's got an incredible attention to detail when it comes to that stuff, which is why I think some of the specifics about adjusting the grade sheet or talking about who graded out a champion on the offensive line and an adjustment that's clearly going to be made to the personnel starting on Saturday or continuing maybe on Saturday against UCLA. I think he's got a greater sense of focus on that than maybe at any point in his career. So 2 of those offensive linemen graded out as champions on Saturday. He did not name them, but I think they were likely to be playing on the center or to the left side of the line and not necessarily on the right side. That's not a knock on Ian Moore in his starting debut. He got praised and singled out by Ryan Day when I asked about guys who made the most of those snaps, but we can safely assume that does not include Tegra Shabola, because Ryan Day was as blunt and to the point about what's going to happen there this week as he's been all year.
Yeah, and I think we just need to change the acronym for CEO. Let's call it the Culture Enforcement Officer, right? That's Ryan Day's job.
Wow.
Right? So he's the guy who has to make sure this is all running, and that starts with holding guys accountable. If you're not living up to the expectation on the field, then that conversation, as he said 2 weeks ago, is not easy, but it's simple. And certainly what we continue to see at right guard is opening the door for this conversation to continue, which, again, last week we were like, okay, we don't have to talk about this anymore.
I was really glad because I thought we could be done with it.
But seems like that's not the case. So we'll see what Josh Padilla does this week. We'll see if Philip Daniels, in his inconsistent play in the last month, has opened the door for more time for Ian Moore. I think it has to. I wonder if we'll see rotation on both parts of the right side of the offensive line this week, which we have not seen throughout the season, but I'm beginning to wonder if that's possible. And one of the subscribers at Letterman Row posited an interesting idea. Maybe Philip Daniels, who we all thought was going to compete for the right guard position, maybe Ian Moore played well enough to even change that picture. So we'll see how this goes over the next few days. I don't think that there's a desire to do what Ryan Day said last week and make wholesale changes, but you have to be willing to consider anything as you head into now the final 3 games of the regular season and then hopefully a deep playoff run.
Yeah, both Philip Daniels and Josh Padilla expected to have full weeks of practice, according to Ryan Day. Now, that does not guarantee anything in terms of playing time on Saturday, but he said that the right guard snaps would be shared, and he also included Ethan Onyanwa in this conversation. It felt like, to me, just watching it in real time on Saturday, that Onyanwa was getting some good push and had maybe his best snaps of the year. It seems like that was validated by what Ohio State saw on film as well. So if one way or another, there's going to be multiple guards playing, Gabe Van Sickle would be in that conversation as well. The conversation on this particular Tuesday was focused on getting a healthy Josh Padilla back, which we already know he was vying for that spot a couple weeks ago before he picked up the injury during the Penn State game. could be all three of them in some form or fashion. But and Tegra Shabola could also respond to this. The conversation that we had a week ago, I don't know that we have to necessarily flush that all the way. When he's been challenged to lose a starting job, he's more often than not responded in a positive fashion. He's now finding himself in that exact same scenario again.
Yeah, and it is what it is in those big jobs, right? Like
bright lights, big city.
You got to be prepared. There's nothing guaranteed at Ohio State. It doesn't matter. Carson Hinsman, if he played back-to-back games that were substandard, Josh Padilla would be considered there. So this is not a knock on one guy. This is the mentality of Ohio State football. And Ryan Day talking today about Bryson Rogers and like how impressed he was with the way Bryson played, and saying there's no update on Carnell Tate, but there's no update. I don't know if that means because he was fine to play Saturday if he had to, or if something else is bothering him, or if it's maybe a bigger issue than they thought when it came to Saturday's decision. But either way, like, these guys have to step up. Doesn't matter who you are. If you get put into the game for Ohio State, the Buckeyes expect you to be a champion, and that means you need to bring it. And so we saw it on Bryson Rogers on Saturday. First time he's really had an opportunity to get that extended playing time early. I bet we'll see more of him because of that.
Yeah, the health updates are both simultaneously the most important news that can come out of Ryan Day's weekly press conference and the least important news that can come out of it, because he's not going to make judgments. They're going to be on the practice field in a couple hours, a little bit earlier, for Veterans Day, because campus is closed. Happy Veterans Day, and thank you to all who've served, by the way. But you look at this, scenario. Tywone Malone, he said, could have played on Saturday. Ohio State held him out. Carnell Tate, the conversation was that he could have played in an emergency situation at Purdue. There was no emergency. He went through warmups, felt some tightness. Appears to be a muscle situation. Same thing with Philip Daniels, who we saw out there go through pregame warmups and get some rehab opportunities. Then he didn't play, and Ian Moore stepped in. This happened at a number of different spots, and even with starters like Arvell Reese, they were going to take some of the snaps off of his plate and let saw Riley Pettijohn get involved. Peyton Pierce played extensively in that game on Saturday.
Another player who Ryan Day praised pretty loudly on Tuesday.
Yeah, the three that came up when I asked were Bryson Rogers, Ian Moore, and Peyton Pierce. So take that for what it's worth. Does it change the starting lineup? Probably not, especially when it comes to the right tackle conversation. I would imagine if Philip Daniels is healthy, then he's going to be back in the starting lineup. And he was not lumped into that conversation at right guard. And, more depth at tackle is a bonus. I think so much of that conversation we had about Onyanwa Daniels and Austin Sierreveld throughout the offseason was, you have a surplus at guard and maybe some uncertainty at tackle. I don't think that they're going to borrow some of those guys on the edge to help on the interior. They don't need to.
Probably not, especially because, again, in light of what Ryan Day said in this press conference about looking ahead to the future, Austin Sierreveld's played so well that there might be an NFL conversation for him. And so Ian Moore getting reps, even though if it's on the other side of the offensive line, is invaluable. So it's going to be an interesting couple weeks ahead with UCLA and Rutgers. But overall, like, this team is as healthy as you could ask for heading into the stretch run of November. So that's intentional, though. That's because Ryan Day, he's never going to come right out and say, well, this is load management. But I
think he kind of has.
We can safely assume that, this is a part of it. But you certainly want the guys to be able to go. I just think that there needs to be a different process in place to tell people that, hey, maybe this guy's not going to go. Yeah. Just put the whole team on the availability report. Just put maybe for everyone.
Don't make me start talking about the availability report. Not on a Tuesday. Look,
very little conversation about UCLA today.
And that's not surprising to me. I think the bounce back from the Bruins after the mid-season firing, or I guess even early season firing, like, that has dissipated, and the win over Penn State has faded a little bit from memory. They struggled on Saturday and lost to Nebraska with starting a freshman quarterback. I think Nico, I didn't watch all of that game. Yeah. The parts that I saw, he still looks very impressive. He's going to provide, I think, a meaningful test for Ohio State's defense with his mobility. He's not the most accurate, most consistent passer in the world. He can do enough to certainly threaten you definitely by college football quarterbacking standards. And he's a real one. So the only question that came about UCLA was about defending Nico Iamaleava again on Saturday night, and the Buckeyes have already done that once.
Yeah, and it's a much different team around him than he had to deal with a year ago with Tennessee, who was, a legitimate playoff contender. This is a one-man show, basically, for UCLA's offense against an Ohio State defense that played 44 snaps last week. So, and the starters that played less than 40. So
37 going into the last round.
They're going to be fresh, and that generally does not bode well for the quarterback of the other team. So.
Yeah, and it does feel like Birm. Like this press conference for Ryan Day, there was a lot of interesting things in it, but it feels like even on our side, asking the questions, like UCLA and Rutgers, there should be no surprises whatsoever. And it's like, I think even in this building, can we get to the end of the month? Like, let's see something meaningful again, which is maybe why, because it is very important to Ohio State to tie this back into the champion grades, is very important for Ohio State to find some way to continue to motivate. And I know that they'll say every game is a nameless, faceless opponent, that the standard is the standard and every game is about them. But they know. They're 31-point favorites this week. They're probably going to be about the same next week against Rutgers. And they want to play for championship stakes. So if you have to find a different way to get that fire lit, I understand and endorse it.
But that's also why a week like this, Ryan Day can talk about what they're thinking for a player 3 years from now. That's why he can talk about recruiting. It's why he can talk about roster building. It's why he can talk about the need for a fourth receiver to step up. Like it is the type of week that affords you the opportunity to say, hey, let's take a step back and look at the big picture of where we're at, because everyone outside of this building is going to look at UCLA and Rutgers and say, well, okay, let's get to Michigan. But they can't do that. So instead of saying, let's look to Michigan, it's like, okay, how are these guys that we're going to play these next 2 weeks? How do they project for the future? How do these guys help us build to the program to where we want to be and stay? So I actually like weeks like this because I think it sheds a lot more light on the philosophy of what it takes to maintain Ohio State at its peak of the sport. At the peak of the sport. And so any opportunity we get to see like a relaxed Ryan Day and not him trying to like obfuscate like how talented a team is that they're playing or whatever, like I actually think it's a good thing. I'm sure we'll hear more about UCLA's threats on Wednesday night, but it was certainly not today.
It would require him being asked about UCLA, and
True.
Nobody really did that. I don't think he's got to go out of his way, especially to manufacture these challenges. Ohio State is aware of what it's expected to do. Because
just win.
The goal is the same every single week. You got to just win. And I'm glad you like weeks like this, because we have a lot more coverage to get to as we roll along. It is only Tuesday afternoon. On Wednesday, you know what we've got. The Beat's got some stocks coming at you because a lot of young or less experienced players got reps at Purdue. So, maybe we'll talk about that. Thursday, 3 things. Wednesday night, we'll be back in here to talk to some players. Should be a pretty good list of Buckeyes to talk to. And
more recruiting stuff coming. Another busy week on that front.
So things are going.
Yeah.
There's a lot for Birm to talk about there on the recruiting front. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll probably be Thursday afternoon. Mm-hmm. All that, you can find it on 97.
Maybe Friday morning. We'll see.
One of those.
America, I want you to tell me, which did you like better? Last week we did talking stuff on Friday morning. Previous weeks it's always been Thursday afternoon. You tell me what you like.
The numbers are out there for viewers.
Yeah, but I want them to tell me. Numbers can be
comment on 97.1 The Fan's YouTube channel. Let Birm know, or 10 TV's YouTube channel, or 10 TV Plus. I don't know if they take comments there, to be honest with you. But Birm's DMs are open too on X.
Or the Austin Birm Show at gmail.com.
Yeah, maybe.
All of them.
And we'll do that too on Bold Predictions. We'll take one question from the mailbag at the Austin Birm Show at gmail.com this week and add that into Bold P's to make sure that we can involve you, because we sincerely appreciate everybody watching and listening as we roll along on shows like Snap Judgments. Thanks for watching this one. He's Birm. I'm Austin. We'll talk to you tomorrow.